Hey, good afternoon. Scott Luton, Enrique Alvarez, and Sofia Rivas Herrera with you here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Enrique, Sofia, how are you both doing?
Doing
Ladies
great.
first. Go ahead, Sofia.
Doing great. Enjoying home office. Having a great Wednesday. How about you, Enrique?
I'm doing a great. I'm doing great. It's been a very exciting week. It's interesting. There's a lot of things going on, especially in supply chain, especially in our country here in the U.S. and in Latin America. So I'm just happy and thrilled for this episode. We're going to have an amazing guest. I've had the pleasure of talking to her before, and it just can hardly wait. She's very inspirational.
Agreed. Just like you and Sofia. But Laura is going to be a wonderful guest here today. We're really looking forward to her conversation. But to your point, Enrique, today's show is going to be all about logistics with purpose. And we're going to also touch on one of our newest series here, Supply Chain Now in Espanol. So stay tuned for that. But we have a wonderful story from an individual and a leader in an organization that's fighting a critical fight, noble mission against trafficking and human slavery. Hey, before we get started, though, it is the dawn of a new day. It is a very historic day here in the United States. The Biden-Harris administration should be, if they're not already in the process, getting sworn in here just momentarily. Kamala Harris is of course breaking ground, historic. First woman, first African American, first South Asian American to serve as U.S. Vice President. So, Enrique and Sofia, we hear a lot here at Supply Chain Now as we try to spotlight, women in leadership positions breaking through the various barriers that are out there. And we've heard a lot from our community about, see it to be it. And that along those lines, beyond how historic this is, it's a wonderful day that undoubtedly will be inspiring many, many individuals out there. So, perhaps if that's not important enough, from our team here, we wish the new administration all the best ahead as we, it goes without saying, tough times, very divisive country, and to some extent world we live in, and we need some stability and some really strong leadership to lead us into better times. So all the best on this historic day from our team here at Supply Chain Now. All right, so Enrique, Sofia, we have a wonderful guest set up to join us here today. It's a bit of a double feature, isn't it, Enrique?
Yeah, no, I actually think that it's going to be fun. We're kind of very happy to launch our new series, as you were mentioning before, with your amazing accent. We are launching Supply Chain Now in Espanol. For everyone that's kind of watching us and listening to our podcast, we believe that the Latin American region is incredibly exciting. It's growing fast. It's very important in this logistics industry, among many other industries. And so we're just happy to be able to share some of similar stories that you and Greg have been able to share with our audience in the U.S. and the rest of the world, but now kind of focusing on people in Latin America. We have great entrepreneurs, great leadership, and of course, very passionate individuals as well. So that's very exciting. We'll talk a little more towards the end of this show about that. But of course, our guest of honor, that's the main dish, right?
Agreed. Did you just say amazing accent?
Yes. Could you say that again, by the way? Go ahead. Announce our show again.
I will later. In the show. But that's a badge of honor. But hey, really quick before we bring on our guest, Sofia, it's great to have you back with us. We have really enjoyed all the thought leadership, digital and otherwise, that you're putting out there. So if you're not following Sofia, you've got to. It's a requirement. And the last time you're with us, Sofia, we were talking about marigolds and the surprising supply chain behind marigolds, right?
Yeah, we did. And yeah, it's basically talking about supply chains of similar products such as coffee, or that are subject to not being very valued and then not very protected. And I think also that links to our topic today with Laura. I think she will have a lot of insight.
I agree.
From that perspective as well.
Completely agree. And also, I know that you're speaking at a big cold chain conference coming up right around the corner. We'll see if we can't find that information and drop it in the comments with our friends over at ISCEA, I believe. Is that right, Sophia?
Yeah, it's right. Just not cold chain, it's just supply chain forum.
Oh, so it's a broader. Okay. All right. Wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, we'll see if we can't find that and drop that in the comments. All right. So really quick, before we bring on Laura Cyrus with Truckers Against Trafficking, let's say hello to a few of the folks that have joined us in the comments here. Of course, Clay and Amanda are behind the scenes making it all happen. Really appreciate that. Clay, great to have you. Sylvia, Judy, so much going on. I agree, Sylvia. Big day. Pratik Shaw is with us here on LinkedIn. Hey, twinning is winning. Your sister, who was with us last time. Great to have you back with us, Andrea. Sagar is with us, tuned in via LinkedIn, and good evening from India. Of course, Peter, it's getting so all sworn in. Thank you for that update, that play-by-play, Peter. That's wonderful. And great to have you back on another live stream. Giuseppe tuned in via LinkedIn from Italy. Sylvia, the accent. Hey, I'm just trying to fit in, folks, trying to fit in. Let's see here. David, great to have you from Canada. Hope that you and the family are doing well. Andre agrees with me. Yes, follow her. You got to. Sophia, especially on LinkedIn, which is where I probably connect with Sophia the most. She has an outstanding eye for breaking things down in the ways that we can all better understand supply chain and the greater business world. So, all right, with no further ado, let's bring in Laura Cyrus, Director of Corporate Engagement with Truckers Against Trafficking. Hey, Laura, how are you doing?
Hey, good afternoon. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. You guys are so sophisticated with all of your technology. I love it. It's really cool.
That's the first time anyone has lobbed that accusation at anything I've been involved in, Laura. So, but thank you. We'll take that as a compliment too. That and this accent. Hey, we're winning today here, Sophia. All right, so let's get started. So we really enjoyed Enrique and Christy Porter, who couldn't make us here today. A wonderful interview that we released, I believe, yesterday, which we dove deeper into your story, Laura. Loved your background, loved your journey, but really appreciate what your organization is doing. And Sophia's going to ask you about that momentarily. But let's start with you. Tell us more about Laura Cyrus, including any connection with the Princess Bride.
Okay, yes. So I was born and raised in Michigan, lived for a little while in Denver. I'm into, if you've listened to the episode, all things musical theater and drama, acting related. And as it relates to The Princess Bride, which is one of my favorite movies, if not my favorite movie, in high school, I actually played the Princess Buttercup role in the first ever stage production of that movie.
Wow.
So my high school, yes, we did The Princess Bride, and it was very fun. So yeah, that's my connection.
I didn't bring my autograph book here today, Laura, and so you're gonna have to come back a third time. And
well, it's I don't know if you want that, but it was definitely a fun experience, and obviously one of the greatest movies of all time. So
agreed. And
next
so
interview will be a musical. We'll be singing.
Everyone
will
have let's do it.
Sing something, and the questions will be.
So we're in the midst of royalty,
yes.
Princess Buttercup, and also joining you here today is Jasper, who you can see in the background. Yes. We love dogs here.
Yeah.
And he is clearly, he knows we're in good hands here. He is not worried about this interview. So great to see you, Jasper.
Yeah.
All right. So Sophia, where are we going next?
Well, so first I wanted just to confirm, you said on the episode you were a drummer?
Okay, yes. So I would not, the answer is yes. Short answer is yes. I would not still consider myself a drummer, but in high school, I marched for 4 years in marching band and played bass. And we had a pretty good drum line. We really did, thanks to some great instructors. So
we can count on your instrument knowledge for our next episode, which will be a musical,
yes.
right?
Yes, indeed. And I also have experience playing cello and percussion and lots of different things. So I think we should definitely make this musical episode happen for sure.
Wow. Okay, noted. We have it. Well, So basically, you shared on the episode an important issue that we need to raise awareness of, which is human trafficking and this modern day slavery. So could you tell us a little bit more about the context of it? How is it still going on? And how can we be more aware of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So January is right here in the US Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and great timing to be having this discussion. We know globally that there's an estimated 40 million people enslaved across the world today in both sex trafficking and labor trafficking, as well as state-sponsored forced labor, child soldiers. It's a complex crime. It is estimated to generate $150 billion a year annually in illicit profits. It is happening, when we think about here in the United States, to anybody that you could think of. I mean, it truly knows no racial, gender, or socioeconomic bounds when it comes to not only who could be the victims, but also the traffickers. Disproportionately, we do know that women and girls of color are more often victims. And so we cannot ignore sort of that racial aspect. But certainly, traffickers, at the end of the day, this is about money for them. This is about profit. That's why they're doing it. And they recognize that there's a demand, unfortunately, for what they're selling. There's a demand for commercial sex, and they're motivated by the dollar. And so as an organization, we, I don't know if we're going this way, but I'll take us this way just in terms of the genesis of where we came from, recognize that the trucking industry, through their sheer numbers, their extensive travels, the natures of their job, could really provide an extra set of eyes and ears for law enforcement in recovering those victims and having traffickers arrested. So we know that one of the places here in the United States and really across North America that this crime is happening is at truck stops, rest areas, hotels, motels, places of business, basically a lot of places where truck drivers are frequently operating. And we just thought, if we can help these men and women identify this crime and know what to do, just imagine how many lives we could change.
Wow. Hey, really quick, if I can interject, Sofia, for a minute here. First, this from Robert Simpson. He's doing his master's thesis on human trafficking, focusing on logistics hubs like air and seaports. Any info you may all have would be greatly appreciated. So, Robert, we can definitely get you connected with the organization here, Truckers Against Trafficking. I think we've got Laura's LinkedIn in the show notes and a link to the organization. And Laura, if you've got any great connections, we'd love to try to connect people, especially with folks that are helping get the word out on just how big this challenge is.
Yeah.
So,
yep. There's actually one thing you could check out, Robert. Look for the organization called BEST, Businesses Ending Slavery and Trafficking. They, I think, just recently released a training specific to ports and those that are operating in ports. So that's something to look into for sure. A little bit outside of our wheelhouse, but yeah, there's lots of good work being done.
Well, that's great, because I'm sure it takes a wide variety of partners from a wide variety of channels and expertise to combat such a huge $150 billion industry that is that enslaves people. One other quick point. I know we've got a video we were able to upload. We can share whenever. I'm thinking maybe after Sofia finishes this segment, and maybe Enrique, before you share a couple of key things from the earlier interview, we can drop it at that point in time. So, Sofia, what's your instant takeaway from what Laura is sharing here?
Well, I think I think you mentioned it as our mobile army of truckers. So I think it is very clever to spot this link between truckers and how they can become like night watches for this crime, right?
Yeah.
And how to get them on board on fighting against it. So at the end, it is interesting how people at their core have these values of caring for another human being. Yeah. So if you can target that and trigger it to action, I think that's something very, very valuable.
Yeah.
Excellent point.
We recognize that as well. I mean, I've met thousands of truck drivers, which no previous experience in logistics or transportation prior to joining this organization, but have met thousands of men and women that are, like you say, family oriented, have those kind of core values. And if they just can understand what to look for and what they have seen over the course of their career and kind of give it language, give it definition, and give them the tools to, again, act, they're more than willing to do so. Because we all have kids or nieces or nephews or grandchildren, or like you said, we're caring. We're a community of people that really, want the best for everybody. And that's really what it's all about. So that bystander intervention piece, I think, is what is so cool about our work, is that we have found a way to empower, to equip, to educate an entire industry of people. We've now trained over 1 million people with our material, and those truckers have made nearly 2,700 calls to the National Human Trafficking Hotline, which is the hotline that we promote, and those calls have helped to identify nearly 1,300 victims. So we know that it's making impact. We know that it's helping, again, to change and save lives. So free training, industry specific, easy lift, 30 minutes or less. Organizations can train their drivers, and there's ways for shippers and manufacturers to get involved in this as well.
So let me ask you a question. Why, in the bigger picture, right? I mean, I'm new to your organization, not new to the problem and the challenge, but there seems to be such a dearth of coverage in business news, in common news. This should be plastered everywhere. What do you think? What's the holdback there, you think?
Honestly, I think people still, while they have a I don't know, increasing knowledge and understanding awareness of human trafficking as an issue. It's amazing to me. TAT's been around 10, 11 years. And there are still people that we meet, large organizations within the industry, that have never heard of us. And so I think that while we have trained 1 million folks, there's 3.5 million plus CDL holders out there. It just goes to show that the work is not done. I think it can be kind of a topic that's not easily discussed in the business realm. People might shy away from thinking that they need to train their truck drivers on how to recognize and report sex trafficking, but they do. They need to. And I think the more exciting thing about it is once people sort of catch the vision, as we like to say, and recognize how easy it is to do this, there's no cost, all of this, they really can make those connections pretty quickly and say, oh yeah, this makes sense for us to do, and we're absolutely going to do it. So yeah, word of mouth, and thank you again for having us on today. This helps tremendously just to get the word out, which is what it's about.
I think it's very important what you do, Laura, and it's inspirational. As I said before, you actually jumped into the call, and one of the things that we're doing, at least here at Vector, Scott, is we're going to have Laura kind of come and maybe go through the video with the people in our company, because even though we're not necessarily a trucking company, I feel like this is important, especially for supply chain, especially because of what Laura already mentioned, which is we are at the right time, mostly at the right locations to spot this crime happening. So what better way of spending 30 minutes, because it's really just 30 minutes, than to kind of come together as a community, a very strong community, that we have, supply chain worldwide, and just make sure that we can contribute to this cause and hopefully eradicate this issue in the next couple of years.
Great point. And as we've talked about on shows with Sofia and Enrique and some other guests, supply chain arguably is in a very unique position to lead and to drive action on these critical global issues that unfortunately I can't get over the numbers. The numbers just, it breaks your heart. But also on the flip side, the 1,300 victims that were identified through training of 1 million people. I mean, that's where I love to hear where these organizations are doing things that address root cause and get people, break people free and have such a huge impact. So, Sofia, before we pop in this video, which is going to be really cool, that the Truckers Against Trafficking has put out, when it comes to global supply chain and leadership's responsibility of confronting and addressing issues like this, I know you're a big study on leadership, as has been evidenced from your previous conversations with us. What comes to mind for you?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that we need more time sharing and showcasing this kind of work. I think it's not enough just to talk about it once, but bring it into our conversations and share it with our colleagues so that they know that these types of organizations and projects exist and that we can join them, right? And at the end, I guess that not all the impact of this particular work in the US is not only for US citizens, but at the end for citizens all over the world. Because truckers, most of them are not only from one nationality, but from multiple nationalities. And they cross borders and perhaps their home is in somewhere else. So the impact is also on several people across the world. So that's like my first takeaway. And secondly, I would say that, talking about difficult topics such as human trafficking in leadership is key.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, Scott, supply chain has this position to do so because it's everywhere and it connects a lot of people within it. So
excellent point. And I should add, I agree with every point, every syllable you just shared there, Sofia. And especially I like, it's not enough to talk about it. We got to find and support organizations that are kind of boots on ground, like Laura's organization is. But on the flip side, and in brutal reality, the global supply chain also, for especially probably with the labor slavery, we're a big contributor and cause behind it. And it only adds more fuel to the fire of why we've got to work together to really eradicate it. So great points there made, Sofia. Let's Enrique, Laura, Sofia, let's give the video a shot here. It's about so to our community and our folks that are tuned in, it's about 3.5 minutes, but you really hear from a variety of folks the impact that Laura's organization is making. So hang on just a minute. Clay, can we
before you launch the video, Clay, real quick, something that Sofia pointed out is that it's not only in the US, right? And I think Laura can tell us a little bit more. Her model is simple and it's effective and efficient. And I think it's something that other countries around the world could replicate and learn from. And I know that Laura and her team are incredibly open to help anyone else out there that's listening to us. And also, Laura, I wanted to see if you could tell us a little bit more about this in Mexico, because you guys already have some presence in Mexico through a partnership or a sibling organization down there, right?
Yeah, our model has been replicated by an organization that runs a national hotline in Mexico. I also, just in the background, if you hear, have a 4-year-old calling for my help. So when we break for the video, I might run away quickly. But yes, if you check out our website under our programs, we have a tab called Model Replication, and you can learn more about how our model has been replicated in Mexico and that we have rolled out into Canada. And we are absolutely willing. If there are organizations that exist out there, we're probably not going to take TAT to other countries just for lack of our bandwidth. But we would love to see leaders in other nations where human trafficking hotlines exist, rise up and replicate this model. And we're very excited and happy to have conversations with people interested in doing that.
Outstanding. And what's your son or daughter's name?
Her name is Margot.
Yes. Go help her out.
I'll be right back.
All good. Let's play that video.
We'll play the video and then we'll have you comment on it.
My son and I were driving through Oklahoma City, had the radio on, and the guy comes on the radio, "Hey, anybody want any underage girls?"
This one, she didn't even look 13, 14 years old. She had a little mini skirt on.
A 14-year-old, 15-year-old is not doing this on her own accord.
You have to wonder who's behind them.
They have a pimp or whatever you want to call them, trafficker.
Sex trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery. It's when traffickers are using force, fraud, or coercion to compel an individual to engage in commercial sex. And traffickers are not only exploiting the victims, but they're also exploiting these locations. Everything from commercial front brothels to residential brothels to hotels and motels to truck stops to street-based prostitution. A lot of exploitation is happening online. That's where a lot of the connections are being made.
Nobody wakes up and says, gosh, I'd really like to sell myself on the streets today. That is something that is being directed by the victimizer, by the trafficker.
Here we are, you know, I'm 15 years old, my cousin is 14, and we're here at a truck stop, you know, being forced to work it, you know, and we're young girls, terrified out of our minds.
The trucking industry is in a unique position because they actually will be in locations that pimps will bring in their victims.
Truckers Against Trafficking is a grassroots organization. It comes alongside the trucking industry, recognizing that they're the eyes and ears of our nation's highways. They're in places that most people aren't, and that they can recognize potential victims of human trafficking more than the rest of us.
You're talking about a really highly trained group of individuals that are seeing trafficking, they know where to report it, they're reporting it right away, and as a result, we have seen countless victims who've been recovered by law enforcement.
When we talk about who's driving change in this area, we have to talk about the American trucking industry.
Thank God what saved me was that truck driver that called in and said, hey, you know, this is whoever at the truck stop, you know, and we have some girls out here that look pretty young.
Oh, that trucker. The one that made that phone call. Boy, I owe him a lot. And if he ever sees this, thank you, thank you, thank you.
I am a team truck driver with my husband, Bob.
Been a 16-year veteran of over-the-road truck driving.
I've been driving for 26 years.
And I am a trucker against trafficking.
And I'm a trucker against trafficking.
I'm a trucker against trafficking.
And I am a trucker against trafficking.
All right. So, that's tough to respond to, frankly, very tough to respond to. And if that doesn't really put it in big, shining marquee sign of why we've got to act and do something about it, you got to check your pulse. So, Laura, I love what you're doing. I love that you've shared what you're doing with our community here. I wish we'd reached you earlier. Enrique, how did you and connect with Laura and her organization?
So we connected through Christy, and Christy has been a big supporter of this cause, and she's an advocate to changing the world as well. So through just trying to find engaging guests to the Logistics with Purpose series, she immediately thought of Laura, and we connected. We had a couple of calls before our interview with her, and I'm with you. I don't know why we didn't hear about her before. This is something so relevant and something that we can all help, and it's just such an easy thing to do as well. So just the return on doing this is just huge.
Yeah, agreed. Well, you know, quick gut reaction and assumption here. I think we talk about all the time about how the truck driving industry doesn't get enough attention, and naturally that's the core of how Laura and TAT are attacking it. And I bet that lack of recognition for an industry probably also stymies wonderful organizations like yours, Laura. And we've got to change that. We certainly got to change that. So let me share a couple comments. So Enrique, Sofia, and I aren't the only ones impacted with that video message. So thank you, Clay, for putting the link out there. Aaron, hey, Aaron, puts it bluntly, right? And that's part of how we all feel. The traffickers, we got to not only combat the traffickers, but get to the root cause, right? Nick, great to have you. Nick Rumor says, huge topic. We've got to get together and stop it. Peter points out that the bottom of your webpage, Laura, I guess, where folks can also go and access the videos. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Our videos, our YouTube page. Yeah. Yep.
And Nick, I love this comment. Absolutely. We need that in multiples of 1,000 here in 2021. Let's see. Your sister, Sophia, your sister, Andrea says, very delicate problem that happens all around the world. And it's been going on for years. It's very sad, but we've got to do something to change it. That's where, in this era of social and digital and how everything's at our fingertips, I really hope, I know probably all hope, that huge issues like this also become more visible and get above the surface level so we can attack it, right?
Yeah.
Let's see here. I got a couple of comments I want to share here. So Bob Bova says, if there's anything that, so Bob is with AccuSpeech. So if there's anything they can do to help further your efforts, Laura, he offers that up. We'll see if we can't make that connection, direct connection. Ed's a big fan of what you're doing. Peter, I'm with you. You do have to, that is tough to see that 3.5 minutes and then get back into the conversation. Because frankly, I want to step outside and cry my eyes out. It really is that it tugs at your heartstrings, especially I tell you, if you've got, sons or daughters, and who've got to figure out their own journey and some of the things that are out there, some of the traps that are out there. Okay. So let's stop there. Laura, I know you've got just not much time, and I want to protect that, especially with your shareholders that are at home with you.
Thank you.
Is there any, we didn't get to so many things that are great, wonderful things about your organization, but is there one key thing that we may have missed that we may want to make sure that you get out there? And then, of course, we'll make sure folks can connect with you.
Yeah, I would just encourage, the people watching that'll watch in the future, think of your networks, right? Think of companies that employ drivers, or companies that that contract with trucking companies, because there's room for this work. Check out our shipping partners program specifically. It leverages those relationships that manufacturers, shippers have with the folks that are moving their product, and says, hey, this anti-trafficking training aligns with our corporate social responsibility, our sustainability goals, and we want anybody that moves product for us to be aware of this free training, and to consider implementing this. And we've had some great partners, great connections through that. So if that's something you're interested in, I'd love to speak with you as well. Yes, visit our website, watch our complete training video. Again, it's about 27 minutes. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We are more than happy to just connect with people wherever you are, and have a conversation about how we can work together to combat this crime.
Laura, and if you don't mind, if you could add to that, like, what's the one thing that people need to do? Because we've been talking about how easy it is. We're talking about the videos, but again, you don't have a lot of time, and I want to respect that as well. But what do you need to do? What is the call for action here?
Yeah, the call for action. So really, if you employ drivers, contact us, and get this training. However you implement training, whether it's through a learning management system. COVID has kind of derailed in-person, like classroom style trainings, but I know there are some people still doing those, or however it is that you can get this information out to those people, or if you have connections to large trucking carriers. Otherwise, take this information home to your dinner tables. I would say that's really the next biggest thing that everybody can do. Again, watch the complete training video. It will be a great education on human trafficking and specifically how it relates to transportation. But we'd give it a PG-13 rating, and we would encourage, if you have kids, if you have teenagers, screen the video first yourself, but share it with your family. Just start to have a conversation about this, because it really is that important that all of us, whether we're in supply chain or transportation or whatever, we all need to be aware of this and understand that we can have, we can have an ability to make a difference. So, yeah. Thank you for those comments. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you for having us.
Yes. Well, hey, Laura, thanks so much for your time. We've got your LinkedIn profile and a link to the organization in the comments to our community. Hey, connect with her, figure out how we can get involved and support this noble mission that Laura and her team are on. Really have enjoyed the few minutes you've had for us here. And check out the podcast where we get a fuller picture of what they're doing and Laura's background for that matter, which we published yesterday as part of Logistics with Purpose. So Laura Cyrus, Director of Corporate Engagement with Truckers Against Trafficking. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Thank you,
Talk
Laura.
soon.
Having you.
Great
Thank
seeing
you.
you again.
Wow.
That's right. There's
yes.
No words to kind of.
So, you know, when you're speechless on a live stream, best thing to do, Sofia and Enrique, do you have any idea?
The audience?
Yes, let's let them speak for us. So Peter, again, 2 daughters, 2 sisters, a granddaughter, 2 stepdaughters. It hurts the heart. Friend Gary Smith appreciates Laura and her group sharing her story here today. Let's see. Aaron says, Peter Bull, daughters as well. It makes me want to keep them in a bubble. Hey, that's, you can't as a father of 3 kids and 2 daughters. But it does make you want to do that, right? Andrea says, Laura, it's amazing what you're doing to change the situation, the whole support there. Let's see. David appreciates the message. Aaron, you name it. So it's tough to go from there and to really go to anything else, but we're gonna try to do it. We want to make sure, Amanda and Clay, that we have got that video, because I think that video, I don't know, Enrique, Sofia, your takes. I was privy to Laura's interview with us as we were producing it. I heard bits and pieces, certainly connected with her on LinkedIn, but there's something about video that puts those testimonials front and center in a way that even if you haven't pieced it together, it smacks you right in the nose. And that was my reaction. Sofia, what's your take here?
Yeah, I think that we need to look at it. I think a visual aid of what's going on is better than just listening to it or someone telling us that it's happening. And it is a tough reality to look at, but we should. And yeah, I go back to that Erin's comment that she feels like now she wants to keep her daughters in a bubble. I think my parents have told me that once when we were little, they also wanted us to keep us in a bubble because it was a protected environment, right? And they felt like everything going on in our country, in the world, was just too much for us. But I mean, I think it is important that through Laura's message, we all can be part of that change, right? And part of our own protection, right? So I would say that it's like enlarging our bubble to englobe everything, and we are that protection to everyone. I don't know if my analogy is right, but it
makes sense to me.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me. We all need bigger bubbles, frankly. And so that's one thing I'm hearing you saying, Sofia. The second thing, I love your comment about the global aspect of it. That clearly resonated with folks. And then thirdly, something I think you spoke to, Enrique spoke to, Laura spoke to, some of our folks in the comments are speaking to, is we got to really lean in and not be afraid of these tough topics, tough conversations. And this is clearly just one of many. And frankly, I always wish I had more solutions, more practical solutions, and more wherewithal to fix things. But if we can hopefully help facilitate the conversation and get that awareness out there, which we know is such a huge problem with so many of these issues, at least we can hopefully advance the conversation and get closer and closer to a more systemic fix. So I want to switch gears over, if we can, to speaking of getting the word out and really serving different communities. We're really excited, not just Enrique, what the Logistics with Purpose series, which has really featured so many groups that are doing doing things like Laura and her organization are doing for equally as important topics, whether it's workforce development and and literacy in Africa, or whether it's serving families that are in need from a variety of different perspectives. I mean, so many different. The nonprofit industry is so deeply entrenched in supply chain. But before we do talk about supply chain now in Espanol, I want to, Sofia, I came across the article you published related to the holidays in logistics world. And because I am not literate in the Spanish language, despite my Enrique says I've got a neat accent. Hey, I'll take that. But can you give us a couple of quick key takeaways? Not to put you on the spot. We can always take a right turn or left turn. What's a couple of key takeaways related to holiday supply chains that you can share with us?
Yeah, for sure. So that article talks about Christmas baubles.
Yes.
Yeah. I forgot if that was the name in English, but yeah. And it talks about different towns here in Mexico that make them in a traditional way, which is blown glass, and how they have stepped it up in their supply chain to also satisfy demand internationally and not just nationally. So yeah, that's like the spectrum of it.
Wonderful. It's like ornaments, like the glass ornaments.
Exactly, ornaments. And also, I think Google Translator can just translate the whole page to English or to any language. Perhaps there will be some issues in lost in translation, but if you get a weird paragraph, just give me a message and I'll tell you no, it's not what I meant. It's this, and that's it.
I will do that. And as Bob Bova also points out accurately, so I'm not literate in English either. And unfortunately, that's right, Bob. Well, Sofia, I love, again, I'm a big fan. I appreciate all the writing that you do related to supply chain, related to business. One other quick comment. You shared an interesting, it's been a few months now, but you shared a great graphic. We may have shared it when you were on a live stream back with us a few months back, where there was a variety of men. I think it's based on an Indian proverb, I believe, Sofia, and they're all inspecting different elements of an elephant, right? And they all have a different take of what they're facing, right? Because they've got their eyes covered. And it really elicited a lot of interaction on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, so it is a proverb from India that talks about different wise men, but they are blind and they are tasked to describe what they are touching, but they just analyze one part of the elephant. So at the end, they all come up with different conclusions of what was it that they're dealing with. And yeah, so
if you can imagine, one of them's got the trunk, one of them's got a paw, one of them may have the tail. And
everyone is like, I have a snail, or I have a snake, or they change the different type of animal they're dealing with because they don't have the whole picture. So I think I also said that imagine if they, instead of having to touch the animal, they were asked to fix it or something like that with a hammer. They perhaps will break it apart. And
it's such a great, for global supply chain at enterprise level, end to end, which I hear is not it's a dead term these days, but it's such a wonderful takeaway there. And again, it triggered a lot of conversation because it just encapsulates so much in one image. So good stuff there. Y'all got to follow Sofia if you want to be part of some of this awesome industry conversation on LinkedIn. Okay. So this natural segue here to your point, Sofia, is, not just with the holiday supply chain that you can find in Mexico, but there's lots of things that are expanding and growing across the country, for that matter, across Central and South America, which takes us to Enrique, one of your newest projects, as if you needed another one. Enrique, the master of dozens of, but I'm kind of giving him a hard time, but a lot of very meaningful, purposeful, make the world a better place in a very practical way projects, which we admire about you and Vector. But tell us more about supply chain now in Espanol.
Yes, no, and thank you very much for that amazing intro, Scott. I might actually use it for the show, but no, it's I think I think it's part of the same thing. So it's not like a separate project. It's just kind of like witnessing how much impact you, Greg, and the team at Clay, Amanda, everyone at Supply Chain Now, and the team that you have built together with the hard work and commitment and passion for this industry and dedication, really, I have witnessed that, right? I have had the opportunity and the privilege of doing so. And by doing that, I have come to realize that it's again, we got to expand the bubble, kind of like following Sofia's analogy, right? And the world's not only around the language English. And I don't know what happened there. Hold on a second. Let me.
we still got you audible.
Let me
we can
see
hear
if there you go. I think that I just had to reconnect the camera. But anyways, can you still hear me?
We sure can.
Yes.
All right, so and I completely lost my train of thought there. No, it's basically just expanding the bubble. It's the exact same purpose. I really want to share interesting stories with people, and not only doing it in English or not only doing it focusing on the US, although I understand it's incredibly important for the supply chain world, but we want to expand that and take it the next step and just opening up for incredible stories coming from Latin America, people that are really changing the world, that are as inspirational as Laura and her organization, and just sharing it in a different language. So we're excited about it, and I will let Sofia just tell a little bit, because we already conducted a few interviews, as you know, Scott, and they're awesome. They're really, really good. Sofia has incredible contacts, and we have had the opportunity to speak to very interesting individuals, and we're excited about this.
Yeah, well,
please.
I think that when Enrique told me about the project, I was like, yeah, I mean, through Supply Chain Now is where I have met a lot of people from Latin America that are working in supply chain and that are eager to share their experience, right? And I think that being so close to the US in a sort of way, it makes us also want to share our success stories. And I think, focusing or giving some highlight to Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, Chile, I don't know, all those countries. Panama also, I remember some of our folks here are from Panama. And I think we have also a lot of expertise in supply chain, but we don't talk that often about it. And at the end of the day, there are a lot of Spanish speaking countries, and perhaps we can make all of you want to learn Spanish at some point, right, Scott?
Yes.
We can share, like, I don't know, different dictionaries of terms in supply chain in Spanish. I don't know, ideas here. And then we all become bilingual.
Agreed. Well, you know, the interesting thing, speaking of the language barriers that exist, it's funny. Just in the last couple of days, we were talking about even if you've got an all English speaking team, if they're in different parts of the world, or if they're in different functional areas, and certainly if they're in different companies, you've got that that vernacular barrier, right? Mm-hmm. One company is going to call this process this, or this thing that, and then you've got, you know, the organizations that have different terminology. So what further complicates that is with all the wonderful languages in the world, and that divide can be a bridge too far sometimes. But the cool thing is especially in this digital age and information age we're living in, the world has become that, and the nature of global business has become a closer place where that divide and those bridges can be built, and it can provide so much opportunity for the global business world and for professionals, you know, working through their journey, despite the automation, despite all the wonderful technology that the industry is adopting and deploying. You know, still there's a ton of opportunity for folks in supply chain, especially as Sofia, as you've demonstrated time and time again on our shows, and the comments are being, you know, featured. And you're learning something, it seems like, every hour, and then sharing it with others, which I find to be a very refreshing approach. So
With that said, Scott, vamos a poder hablar en español un poco, invitar a toda la gente que nos está escuchando a que participe en este nuevo show, Supply Chain Now en español. Vamos a tener muy buenos invitados, gente realmente que está cambiando el mundo de la logística en Latinoamérica, gente con mucha experiencia, gente con una gran pasión por cambiar el mundo, por hacerlo un mejor lugar para vivir. Y bueno, me encantaría compartir esa oportunidad con todos ustedes. Así es que si nos están escuchando en Latinoamérica, en cualquier parte del mundo, pero hablan español, acompáñenos. Va a ser una muy buena aventura. Tenemos ya algunas entrevistas alineadas. De hecho, Sofía, tuvimos la oportunidad de platicar. A lo mejor es buen momento para platicar un poco. Si quieres presentar la conversación que tuvimos con tu contacto y decirle a nuestra audiencia quién será una de las múltiples entrevistas de las que estarán escuchando.
Bueno, hablamos con Josué Velázquez, el director de la carrera, bueno, la maestría de cadena de suministro y logística en el MIT. Y él es de Veracruz, México, y nos compartió su historia sobre cómo es que llegó ahí, qué es lo que más le apasiona y cómo está cambiando el mundo a partir de esa posición que maneja.
Esperen esa. Go ahead, Scott. Let's just go back to English.
What's so funny?
You're speaking a little too fast as well.
Well,
I apologize for that.
No apologies needed. So Clay's sending me a text about he's laughing because I'm nodding my head. I promise you, I picked up every fourth or fifth word. I was trying to piece it together. It's been so long, but yeah, moving fast. I can't talk English fast if y'all haven't picked up on. So what was the thrust of what y'all just shared?
We were basically just sharing a little bit of what the show will be about, which is essentially what I already explained, right? Just giving voice to interesting, engaging, amazing people and organizations in our supply chain community. And then we also, Sofia basically just gave a little bit of a small intro to one of the first interviews with someone that is very engaging, leads the MIT School for Logistics. And so that was kind of what we talked about.
Outstanding. And Sophia's great. It's so great. One of the neatest things here, as we've had a wide variety of different hosts that are participating in the interviews, is to get some of the sharpest talent, in the industry. So it's wonderful to hear. I can't wait to listen to what you and Enrique have tackled on some of those shows. And we got to get you back on another live stream, especially as we, just around the corner, we feature a Spanish only live stream to really make things even easier for folks that speak Spanish first and or maybe only. So, but I want to share a couple comments. We've got a couple comments here from the audience. Let's see here. Sylvia wants to know if she missed the website to donate to TAT. Peter kind of threw a gauntlet down. I think he made a small contribution to the organization.
Nice.
He said, "Hey, let's all do it together." So Sylvia, we'll see if Clay and Amanda, whenever Clay's not poking me a bit, if he can drop the comments to the website there in the comments. Let's see here. Peter. Okay. I guess that's the Canadian chapter that was put out there. Sophia, AA, hello, air capital of the world in Wichita, Kansas. Great to have you here. He says he really liked the article by Sofia Rivas Herrera and a video link to the supply chain of Christmas glass ornaments from Mexico. We follow her more than she probably realizes. She truly is a great supply chain ambassador. I'm telling you, next time Sophia comes on the show, her or Laura, we're going to have our autograph book ready to go. Gary says, "Hey, great idea, Enrique." I'm talking about the new series. If I'm not mistaken, Spanish is spoken by more people than any other, and or it's at least top 5. I think it is number 1. Gary, Enrique, Sophia, do y'all know for sure?
Definitely top 5 for sure.
Yeah, I think either Chinese also would be one of those languages, and Hindi perhaps is another one.
Yep. Agreed. Let's see here. Kelvin is tuned in via Zambia. Great to have you here, Kelvin, via LinkedIn. Let's see here. AA is asking for subtitles, please. Earlier, I'm with you. David says, very lost. Peter.
Clay has it. Clay has the numbers. Mandarin, Spanish, and English. Those are the top 3.
As usual, you're ahead of me, Sophia. Is that in the private, or is that in the? Did he put that on the
secret live stream?
Secret. All right, share that again, then, Sophia. What was that?
So it's Mandarin, then Spanish, and then English.
Okay.
So we need perhaps the series in Chinese later on. Definitely.
Thank you, Andrea. Yes, you and Clay should get together. Hey, sometimes you don't know exactly how to react, but I'm gonna speak Spanish by the end of the year. How about that? Maybe I can make an appearance.
This has been recorded.
This has been recorded. Gary says, yes, we do need a Star Trek universal translator. I'm with you. Pedro tuned in from Peru. Pleasure to hear you. Great to have you here via LinkedIn, Pedro. Let's see, Sylvia.
Pedro and everyone else that's kind of tuning in from Latin America, please definitely contact us or contact Scott because we want to interview people in all the Latin American countries. So, Pedro, para Perú, si conoces a alguien o incluso a lo mejor te podemos entrevistar a ti, please just send us a quick text or comment on the link.
Excellent. Absolutely. Let's see here. Sylvia says she wants you, Enrique, to help her brush up on her Spanish. Amanda says donations made. Who else is making a donation? Love that. And then finally, let's see here. David's running a tab. So at least $75 thus far. Excellent. That's great stuff here. All right. So what an incredible, I mean, it kind of ran the gamut today. A powerful story that cannot get enough attention on the front end. Laura Cyrus and the Truckers Against Trafficking. I mean, to train 1 million people, just to train 1 million people, that is a feat, huge feat. And then to see how that training leads over into real life, let's face it, life-saving results. And that's not being dramatic. It's pulling 1,300 people at least out of miserable slave lifestyles. So my mind can't even venture to what they've been forced to do and been involved in. So y'all check out. We've got the links everywhere, comments in the show notes, you name it. One final thing with Enrique and Sofia. If folks, whether they're tuned in live or whether they're maybe hearing this on the replay, if there's one thing, and Enrique, I'm put you on the spot first, and then we'll wrap. If there's one thing that folks that tuned into the last hour need to laser in on, if they forget everything else but one thing, what would that one thing be, Enrique?
I think I'm just going to go with what Peter said. And so I'm kind of stealing Peter's call of action here. And just go to the TAT website, learn about Truckers Against Trafficking, and more importantly, about the cause that they're trying to defend and just help out. I mean, it's really not the donations help for sure, but it's really more about awareness. It's more about everyone that's in supply chain and has a logistics company or has some sort of connection with logistics. Just be aware, demand awareness, forward it to your employees, forward it to your suppliers, talk to your clients about this. It's something that we can all do, and it shouldn't be that hard. And it's definitely life-changing for many people. And I think that if we actually improve the lives of those people, then the community and the society and the world will be a better place without a doubt. So I think I said more than one, Scott. But it's just go to that website, I guess. It's the summary.
Yes, you took more of a Reader's Digest approach. That's okay.
I just can't control myself. Listen to me in Spanish, and actually we'll be talking a bit more too. But no, thanks, Scott.
You bet. Thank you. All right, Sophia, what is your one big thing here?
Learn Spanish. No, kidding.
Yeah.
No, that's not the big takeaway. But I think, I was going to say something related to it's not only about donating, but also taking action, right? Getting that culture within you. But additionally, I would say that I think Laura said it on the episode. She said it's important to realize that we all can be part of the change, that we all can actually make an impact. Even though we think we cannot, yes, we can. So I think that's the one key takeaway.
Agreed. And I like your comment, it's not enough to talk about it. And that can be applied to so many critical challenges that we've got to face, supply chain, global business, you name it. So really have enjoyed this wide-ranging episode here today. Again, appreciate everybody tuning in. Appreciate the comments. Appreciate the support for TAT. That's awesome to see. That's the kind of day we need today, along with the other historical nature that's taking place in the nation's capital. So Enrique Alvarez, Sofia Rivas Herrera, thanks so much for your time. I think we've got your LinkedIn profiles as well in the show notes. Want to get folks connected with you both. Hey, do yourself a favor. Make sure you're following Sofia, especially on LinkedIn, just like Andrea said, or just like AA said, we're following you more than you think, Sofia. Hey, on that
I better
note,
watch myself, right?
no, keep driving the conversations. Yeah, I love what you're doing. Look forward to having you back. So thanks to you both, to our audience. Thanks for tuning in and spending part of your day here. Hey, gosh, there's so many great role models to point to, but hey, do good, give forward, be the change that's needed, be like Laura Cyrus and the Truckers Against Trafficking. On that note, Scott Luton signing off for now. We'll see you next time on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.